Can you tell us about your new store and why you decided to open here in Fresno?
Absolutely. So we went all completely gluten-free, obviously, because there's not something like it in Fresno. So if you're gluten-free like I am, I've been for the past 10 years, 12 years now, you have to go out of town for most people. I make my own stuff, so I don't have to worry about it much, right? But if you are gluten-free in Fresno, you're relying on mostly supermarket products, or every time you're out of town, you have to pack and bring it back, so to speak, right? Unless you enjoy baking or whatnot, then you do it at home. So I figured there's always a need. And also we had the space in here. We manufacture right behind us in here, all the sugar-free products. And this particular unit was basically just our office. So just figured convert it. And it happened that in one day I had about 4 people asking me when am I opening a bakery. So finally I was like, okay, that might be a sign. So I give it a shot.
You had some interest from people that were coming up to you and asking you, hey, you should really open up a gluten-free shop.
We did. I used to, we still do, but I used to get requests for like cakes and whatnot, orders, which I would fulfill, but never, shouldn't say never, didn't want to get into the bakery business because the long hours is a lot of work. So you're in 24/7 pretty much. You're married to the spot. So I tried to avoid it as much as I can. But when I had several people asking me about it, in one day I'm like, okay, you know what? We have the space. We already blend flours that are gluten-free for different uses, along with the sauces that we have. So I figured, okay, we have everything. We're starting to do a farmer's market as well. So I figured, why not? Just do it. We have the space, make the most of it. So we set it up.
So before when you opened this bakery, you were already manufacturing like certain products that were gluten-free. That's what you've been doing.
So everything I do is gluten-free. Like the sauces in here behind me, they're all sugar-free as well. So they're caramel sauces, chocolate sauces, different flavors, vegan and non-vegan. So we've launched this about 2 years ago or so, right before the pandemic. And then we relaunched after the pandemic. But since we had all of those, and we also, like I said, we manufacture flours as well, gluten-free flour blends. So it was all there. So we just had to combine it more or less. So we do offer some sugar-free products in here, but not everything is sugar-free because it really makes it cost prohibitive between the gluten-free and sugar-free, right? So, but we do offer several products that are, and we keep adding as we get more requests for it. But since we opened, sincerely, I've been slammed. Like the first day, we ran out, I think in the first hour and a half, there was nothing left. So ever since, I've been just trying to catch up. So I haven't got a chance to get into the whole keto and diabetic friendly products yet. Of course, we have these, but not all the baked products. So that's what we've been working on, basically, just trying to catch up with everything and to add more as we can and have more keto items and diabetic friendly items and sugar-free items. And as you can see, there's few of them every day. I just add a couple more until we get fully staffed and get going with it.
Cool. And where can people find some of your products? What stores would they be looking for, or do you have to go online?
So obviously you could buy them in here. We sell them online on indulge.com, locally at the Natural Path Health Center, and also Sierra Nut House.
Oh, okay.
They both carry it. They each carry different flavors. They don't all carry the same flavors, or all of them, but yeah, they both carry it locally here.
What's something that you opt not to have besides like flour? If you could talk more
What do you
about
mean,
the
like
ingredients.
as far as like the flour blends?
Yeah.
So we obviously blend out our own flours, right? So I have 4 different flours, each is for different purposes. So most of the flour you find outside, or outside being on the store shelves, they'll promise you 1-to-1, or one kind of like one kind of product that replaces everything. But even in regular baking, you've got 4 different kind of flours. You've got all-purpose flour, you got bread flour, you got cake flour, you got pastry flour, and the difference is really percentage of gluten in that case, in the regular flour case, right? In the gluten-free case, it's far more complicated, yet all you'll find in the stores is really one kind of flour blend for everything. Sometimes you might find different blends, or at least the labels, but if you look at the blend, it's really the same. So it might say cake flour, but it'll have the same ingredients, right? What I did is basically I took that whole thing and turned it around. So each blend has different ingredients that are designed specifically for that purpose. So the cake flour blend, for example, has different ingredients versus the all-purpose or the pie flour, right? So in the pie flour case, you have you want to get a flaky flour blend or flaky crust. So the blend is designed for that, right? And then the main difference really is so that you don't taste the difference. Yes, we are a gluten-free facility, completely gluten-free facility. Our products are obviously gluten-free, but for anybody who's not gluten-free should not taste the difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we want everybody to be able oh yeah, we could go have a croissant or a cinnamon roll or a cake and not be oh yeah, this tastes like gluten-free. You know what I mean? Or looks like gluten-free. So our goal is basically, yes, it is gluten-free, but make sure, to make sure that people don't feel the difference. The sourdough breads, you really can't tell they're gluten-free. And that's what we basically strive to achieve.
I was going to ask you if you've ever owned other stores in the past.
I have. So I've been self-employed since 2009. No, wait, 99. We missed a couple of years there. So yeah, exactly. So I've had bakeries, cafes. I've had a couple of restaurants in here. I had a restaurant in Fresno from 2007 to 2010. I had a bakery next door at the same time. I did catering in here as well as the Bay Area. And yeah, we've done consulting for the industry as well. So I've been in the industry for the past 32 years. I went to culinary school in Italy. Went for the whole thing. Started when I was 14.
14? Wow. Yeah, what made you move to Fresno?
So I moved to Fresno right after 9/11 happened. So that's when I had the business in the Bay Area. And then my lease was over basically, and as the whole world was changing at that time for those reasons at that time, different than the whole pandemic thing a couple of years ago, right? So I had family in here. So I kind of moved down here to help a little bit. And then I saw the opportunity and stayed, and I started doing personal chefing then. And then that kind of grew into the whole catering business, and from there I expanded to the restaurant and the bakery. Always had a passion for baking, but when I was diagnosed with non-celiac, is basically kind of got out of the business. That was when I had the bakery and restaurant here in Fresno, right up the street, on Bourdon Palm. So when I was diagnosed with non-celiac, I was basically all they covered was flour. So I had to make a big choice, big change. And that's when I got into more of the gluten-free aspect of it. But the thing is, when I actually went gluten-free, all my problems, so to speak, all my pains and back pain, neck pain, gut issues, joint pain, all just disappeared, right? So that changed my entire health, if you would. But that prompted me to find out, okay, what is it? How is it that happens? How is it that one ingredient could make such a big difference, right? Initially, I didn't believe it, so I went back to eating gluten. That's when I realized I had a brain fog and a stinking attitude that came with the gluten part, and that was basically the end of it for me. I haven't had, except a couple of cross-contaminations here and there, any gluten since 2009 or 10. And I don't plan on having any, but that's kind of my journey took me to a different route, and that it got into more of wanting to learn more about it. So I became a certified gluten-free practitioner. I got down the road of the whole nutrition part of it. For a while, when I got out of the bakery for the past, 12 years now, I got more into the nutrition aspects of the business, if you would, helping people create healthy lifestyles. Was between weight loss and creating a better lifestyle. Really, I always look at it as creating a lifestyle versus dieting, right? Which ultimately really led me to create all these products, going to the sugar-free part of the whole business. But like I said, because of the demand and all that, and we don't have another bakery in the valley, throughout the valley really, so came back into baking, back to kind of the roots, if you would, back to my passion. So, yeah.
And during the pandemic, did you find it kind of challenging, like you kind of want to wait to open the bakery because everything was kind of closed or anything like that?
Actually, during the pandemic, I had moved out. I used to live in LA during that whole thing. We used to co-manufacture, or we used to contract out the manufacturing aspect of it. But when the pandemic hit, we realized that that was not sustainable. So I had to change the business model, bring it in-house, and then came back to Fresno because it was easier to find locations that fit my needs, so to speak. And that's how I end up in here.
What have you heard from customers so far, like this week that they've come in and there's kind of been like such a huge demand, like you said, you ran out like on the first day. What have customers said to you, like, you know, we're so thankful that
Mostly they're grateful that we are here because for a lot, like I said, for me, it's never been a big deal because I could just make it myself and eat it. Like if I want baklava, I could make it. If I want whatever, we just make it. And then eat it and we'll be done, right? Or I shouldn't say eat it, really devour it or, you know, like splurge on it. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. And I think I had not realized that, where for many, just like, oh, when we are in LA or Bay Area, we'll get some treats, right? Or we'll order it online. So for a lot of people, it's really about the whole having this accessible in their backyard, right? To be able to actually come in and enjoy, whether it's a cake or a cinnamon roll. Cinnamon roll has been the biggest hit so far, between sourdough and cinnamon roll. Didn't think about it much, but yeah. So to be able to have a cinnamon roll that tastes like cinnamon roll, or a sourdough that tastes like sourdough, without the extra textures or without the extra aftertaste, if you would, it's a big deal for a lot of people. We've had several people coming in saying like, oh my God, I've been gluten-free for 22 years or 10 years. Several people just came back several times the same day. So it's really, you know, you get many people, we see them every day now since we opened. So it's really, I think it's exciting for a lot of people. And it's also, it's fulfilling just to be able to be normal, right? So you don't feel like you're completely deprived.
And are you planning to partner with other restaurants in the area?
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Have you reached out to anyone?
Haven't yet, because I haven't been able to catch up
Okay.
since we opened.
Yeah.
So literally we're trying to just catch up and keep up with the demand so far. But definitely would love to reach out and make sure pretty much every restaurant has some options to offer, so that when we're out dining, we're not feeling totally deprived and, you know, like smell it but can't have it. You know, so that's the goal.
We have Thanksgiving coming up next week and the holidays coming up. Do you have any special items or very limited items that you're planning to release?
So we got a lot of requests about stuffing.
Oh.
So we'll have stuffing in bags already pre-cut, so they could stuff the turkey with regular, or tastes like regular, but gluten-free stuffing. We have requests for certain items, although I'm not sure if I'll be able to catch up with all of them, but like the pies and the apple pies and pumpkin pie. I was initially going to offer special items, but I'm not because I can't catch up with it. So, but we have some orders already in place for like the pumpkin pie and apple pie.
Do you have any special equipment or is there any special operations that you have to do differently?
Yeah, to some extent, because you're modifying everything. So equipment, what gluten does is basically give it that stretchability, right? That's what gluten does, that's gluten's thing. So a lot of the equipments are not designed for that. Even when you're mixing the dough, you can mix it just like regular flour. So a lot of the understanding that you have as a trained chef from the gluten perspective or a pastry chef, it kind of, most of them goes out the door, because a lot of the concept, a lot of techniques don't really apply anymore, especially when it comes to the fermentation process, right? If you follow the same thing as regular baking, you're not going to get it. You're not going to have a baked product at the end of the day that's successful. That's right. So you have to modify a lot of things. You have to modify your recipes, obviously, the hydration level. You got to modify the ingredients. The processing system, it just changes completely. Most of the equipment, unless you modify your recipe to fit the equipment, they probably won't work. So like even sheeting the dough or rolling out the dough on the sheeter on the equipment, that's a whole different process again, because it's not, no matter what you do, it's not as strong as, let's say, the gluten-based dough. So a lot of sheeters or the rollers will just tear it apart. So there's a lot of things that you have to modify and kind of figure out how to work with it. And that's, I think, what separates kind of a professional setting versus a home setting or a cottage setting. You know what I mean? It's, so it's really totally different. And we're fortunate to have most of the equipment that we need to be able to do it. So we're not struggling with it. And as demand grows, we could grow with it. The products that I put out, I make sure they're tested first. That's why I'm hesitant to put out all the keto products out, all the sugar-free products. I mean, we have some of them that we've tried already, that I've tested multiple times. So I know I could replicate, and I know I could expand on, right? Multiply the recipes, if you would. But a lot of things I haven't yet. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to not to add a lot of them at once, because we want to make sure whatever we do, it really is tested and true and tried. So you're getting the product that you want versus, oh, here it is, it's sugar-free or it's keto, but you take it outside, you can't even eat it. You know what I mean? It's like, it looks like a brick or something. You know, so it's really, so from that perspective, really, I spent a lot of time researching and developing before even formulating my products. Like every ingredient has a purpose. It truly has a purpose in the blend. In the, like, so a lot of times you hear about, oh, well, if there's more than 3 ingredients, it's not good for you. Well, I got news for you. In the gluten-free business or industry, that doesn't work. Because if you only keep 3 ingredients, you're not going to get anything out of it, right? So it's really difficult to understand sometimes, but it's really, you're replacing one ingredient, wheat, with 6, 7 different blends or flour or grains to create that one, or the properties of that one ingredient, right? So you might find rice flour, brown rice flour, you might find tapioca, you might find potato starch, you might find, we don't use any corn products, we don't use any soy products in our, or peanuts or, like nuts. Obviously we bake with nuts, but not in the flour blends. So, but you have to replace them with something and really recreate that starchy, fibery, texture of the wheat flour blend, basically, or the wheat flour. So it takes a lot for it. Every ingredient has different reaction once it's heated or, once baked. Some might add texture, some might add crust, some might add or support with the crust, or some might be, so it's really, each one of them has different use. So that's why it makes it a little difficult, and that's why going back to the same, like different mixtures that you'll find in the market, yeah, they might work, but they don't replace it exactly. So you have to modify your recipe because of that, or accordingly. So I try to take the guessing work out of, somebody who's cooking at home. Even as professionals, unless you want to spend, 7, 8 years in researching everything and coming up with everything, you don't have the time for it. So even as a professional, if you want to bake at home or for your restaurant or for your whatever business, you could get the flour blends and make it. So you don't have to modify too much.
And if people want to know more information, where can you tell them, and where are you located?
So we are on the northeast corner of Shaw and West, literally behind Dutch Bros. And then you could find us online as well at indulgeright.com. There's a whole page, a bakery page in there as well. Of course, you could reach us in here, directly at the bakery. And hopefully soon at the local cafes and coffee shops that will carry our products.
I just had one question. It was, you said you were diagnosed with
Non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So
non-celiac?
Non-celiac.
Oh, okay.
So there's two kinds, right? You have celiac or non-celiac. The main difference is really that when it's celiac, it mostly affects your intestinal lining. That's what celiac is. So it affects your intestinal lining, your villi. When it's non-celiac, it really affects it could affect any part of your body, anywhere from your brain to your joints to your skin to your, any part of your body really. It's extraintestinal.
You were diagnosed with it? With non-celiac?
Well, technically I was diagnosed in 2007, but didn't buy it for a couple years until my doctor was really insistent, so I gave it a shot. So it took me a couple years to believe into it.
Okay.
But yeah, so I've been gluten-free since 2010, 10, I would say.